Nigeria, often referred to as the giant of Africa, has been making waves in recent years, not just for its sheer population and economic potential, but also for the vibrant startup and innovation ecosystem that is taking root within its borders. While innovation and entrepreneurship flourish, it's imperative for startups to understand and navigate the legal framework that governs their operations. In this episode, we'll delve into the legal aspects of startups and innovation in Nigeria. My name is Dorcas Yakubuzala. You're watching Tech Talk on Trust TV. In the heart of Africa's innovation surge, Nigeria stands tall as a hub for startups and groundbreaking ideas. In Nigeria, startups are not just businesses, they are dreams, ambitions, and solutions to some of the country's most pressing challenges. Here, entrepreneurs are not just dreamers, they are the architects of change. But innovation requires a solid foundation, and that's where the legal framework steps in. Startups in Nigeria navigate legal avenues to protect their ideas and attract investment. Intellectual property is guarded, and regulations are adapted to foster growth in the tech-driven sectors. The government is working hand in hand with startups to simplify processes and reduce red tape. Mentors and support organizations offer guidance through the intricate legal landscape. In Nigeria, innovation thrives, and the legal framework paves the way for dreams to become reality. Join us as we explore the journey of startups and innovation in Nigeria, where creativity meets the law. Welcome back from that break. In case you're just joining us, you're watching Tech Talk. Now, joining us on the program is Senator Ihengen, who is the lead partner at Infusion Lawyers, where he heads the fintech, blockchain, and virtual assets practice of the law firm. He's a tech lawyer with interest in policy and regulations, and also the former president of Stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria. You're welcome to the program. Okay, so to kick off things, could you explain how the legal framework in Nigeria's startups and innovation works?
When it comes to the legal frameworks that support tech startups and startups generally in Nigeria, specifically, we have those ones that cover business or company registration and management. We also have legal frameworks that cover intellectual property rights, registration, and management, as well as those ones that cover tax. So based on those three categories, I would then mention specifically the one for companies or business registration includes the Companies and Allied Matters Act, the one that is administered by the Corporate Affairs Commission. That act was reviewed recently in 2020, and it helps to ensure that startups are able to set up their companies or businesses in a manner that is easier, and also things can be done electronically using the Corporate Affairs Commission portal. It also enabled anyone to be able to incorporate or register businesses with or without the need for lawyers, ensuring that the cost of registration is significantly reduced. Apart from the Companies and Allied Matters Act, we also have under intellectual property the various laws that manage or help us to control the way that intellectual property is protected and registered in the country. They are specifically the Nigerian Copyright Act. We now have a new Nigerian Copyright Act of 2022. which ensures that people, startups or tech startups that are creators, whether it is software you are creating, whether you're in the literary, we are in the creative or entertainment sector, or you're an artist, you can register and protect your literary and creative works as well as software. We also have the Trademarks Act. The Trademarks Act is quite an old one. It is the Trademarks Act 1965, and that act enables or ensures that you're able to manage your brand. So startups who have brand to protect and to be able to also leverage those reputable or goodwill that the startups, the reputation and goodwill that the startups enjoy, to be able to protect them as well. We also have the Patents and Designs Act, which helps to ensure that whatever new or inventive innovation that you have, whether it is technological or otherwise, you can have them also protected, including designs as well. So these are basically the legal frameworks as far as intellectual property is concerned. Lastly is the tax part. In terms of tax, you'll be looking at the Companies and Allied Matters Act, which ensures that you're able to pay tax based on the income that you make. We also have the personal income tax, which applies to employees of the company, ensuring that people are able to support the government's efforts in building infrastructure. There are also a number of other taxes, including the value-added tax, VAT, which is a very popular one in the country. So these are all the frameworks you can expect in the startup and tech space.
All right, so intellectual property is crucial for startups. Can you delve into how Nigerian startups can protect their intellectual property and innovations within the legal framework?
Nigeria has made quite progressive efforts in that regard. For instance, when it comes to ensuring that we're able to attract the level of investment into the country, we have seen the government introduce policies that will help open that window up. For instance, we've seen the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, introduce various policies and standards just to ensure that we are able to attract the right level of investment. And with the support of the Federal Ministry of Information, of Communications and Digital Economy, we have also witnessed over the years how that ministry has worked in collaboration with other sector regulators to ensure that we reduce the bottlenecks and the hurdles and barriers in the markets. I'll give an example of what is happening in Nigeria's fintech space, financial technology space, where we have seen a number of startups leverage government's policy to attract funding into the Nigerian tech space. Nigeria leads in Africa as far as investment, the volume of investment is concerned in that sector. And this is because the government has been able to a large extent, ensure that these investments come in into that industry. The Central Bank of Nigeria as well, that regulates the fintech space and the financial services industry, has also introduced a number of new licensing regimes just to ensure that it is able to accommodate the new and emerging technologies that are now being applied by innovators in the startup space, as well as in the traditional banking system. I would say that the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the government agency that regulates investments and securities in the Nigerian space, has done quite some work regarding that aspect to ensure that there is some level of investment protection, as well as investment safety, as well as consumer protection in the space. Of course, there has been limitations in that regard, because if you follow very closely, most of the money is being raised in the tech startup and generally the startup space are not coming from local investors as much as they are coming from foreign investors. So there's a lot of dollars in that market, and necessarily investors or foreign investors would like to protect their interests as much as possible. Now, I do not think that we are yet to have adequate regulatory frameworks to ensure that we can protect investors best in that space. But we've seen self-regulatory mechanisms being introduced by venture capitalists, angel investors, private equity firms, just to protect themselves, pending when the government regulations can fully cover them. I would also mention that the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Council or agency, FCCPCA, they've done fantastic, especially under the current leadership, to ensure that we are able to across industries. The FCCPC is doing a fantastic job in that regard. I'll give you an instance where we had the issue of investments coming in from Asia into Nigeria's digital money lending space, where we have a lot of loan sharks, so as it is called, who practice, who apply certain sharp practices, sometimes abuse personal data or privacy of users just to be able to get their money or loans back. Now, when it comes to sector-specific regulations, necessarily we understand that regulators will be concerned about protecting their various industries or sectors. For example, as you've said, or as you've pointed out, we have the Central Bank of Nigeria regulating the fintech or the financial services industry. And when it introduces sector-specific regulations, they affect the growth and the shape of startups in that space. When the CBN decided to introduce a number of new licensing regimes for fintech-based startups, it of course shaping the growth of that space. Today, we talk about digital banking. There are guys like Kuda and the rest of them trying to play in that space. But it may be revealing to know that till date, the CBN does not have any digital banking license, even though digital banking has become such a big thing. What startups or what companies use in that space is still the traditional microfinance banking license to be able to offer digital banking. So and that has shaping how things have played out. If the CBN has a digital digital banking license, I can imagine that space should be a bit more predictable in terms of the rules and regulations guiding them. Today, every now and then, you see the CBN coming up with all sorts of fines, right, and penalties against players in that space because they are quote unquote abused, certain licenses. This just tells us that maybe there are certain sector-specific regulations that is still lacking in that space. And for me, I think that it is high time we had a digital banking license specifically for digital bankers who don't necessarily have to have offices anywhere. They just run using technology. OPay is the big one today. All right. So we need to really look at that. In terms of also sector-specific licenses, we have seen other sectors come up, like the agrotech, those technology tech startups that rely on that do stuff in the agricultural sector, leveraging emerging and new technologies. Those guys will also need sector-specific regulations or policies. But right now, I think that there's more focus by policy makers and regulators on the financial services industry. We're not seeing equal attention to the educational sector, where we have the EdTech, also disrupting that space. We also have the health tech as well. Those who are in the health industry or health sector also trying to make health services more accessible to Nigerians or Africans generally. We are not seeing a lot of regulatory innovation in those areas. So I would say that sector-specific regulations are very important. And it, like I said earlier, regulations can determine how a sector, is shaping. So it's important that all regulators work together to ensure and innovation-friendly policies and regulations, so that we don't stifle innovation. That brings me to what happened in 2021, precisely February 2021, when the central bank decided to issue a restriction, what a lot of people call a ban, against cryptocurrency-related transactions in Nigeria's banking and financial system. Since that day till now, that ban or restriction continues to exist or play out. And we've seen many banks get penalized over these issues. The fines amount to over ₦1 billion the last time I checked. And you would wonder why we would go for such approach, right? When we could easily have just had a more innovation-friendly approach that would have these players in the crypto or blockchain space basically just adopt what the Money Laundering Act 2022 has provided for virtual asset service providers, simply saying that whenever you want to conduct business that is crypto-related, ensure that you comply with Nigeria's money laundering regulations, which is basically KYC, and be able to report suspicious transactions, right, to the NFIU, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. This, I think, would have been a more robust approach, a more nuanced approach, so that we don't kill innovation. Whereas when you go to other countries, from Dubai to Switzerland, even South Africa, Mauritius, and all these other places, you see that they've gone way ahead as far as these regulations are concerned. So I think that it's high time we started paying a lot more attention to that, and we stopped working in silos. My experience showed that some regulators don't work adequately together enough. We expect that in the digital economy of today, we shouldn't have regulators working in silos.
All right, so in the ever-evolving landscape of startups and innovation, what do you see as the future trends and legal challenges that entrepreneurs should anticipate?
That's an interesting question. Today, 7 challenges necessarily come because ever increasingly, entrepreneurs and innovators now need to be able to mine data as much as possible to be able to create solutions. I think that the challenges that innovators or entrepreneurs can expect include data protection and privacy. It's a very serious issue these days, especially when you also find that there are now emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, right? So I think that that's going to be a challenge for both innovators and regulators themselves. It's going to be a serious challenge. Another aspect, I think that startups or entrepreneurs need to also look at in terms of future trends and challenges is this idea of decentralization. How do I mean? Today you hear about technologies like blockchain technology, and you wonder what's the implications. The idea of blockchain technology essentially is that you are able to store or transfer, exchange data in a manner that is just between, in a peer-to-peer manner, that does not need a third party or intermediary in the middle. So if you have that in mind, you begin to see that central authorities may now begin to disappear in the space, which now means that platforms will be more decentralized. We have seen the practical application of that with cryptocurrencies, where you don't need any bank accounts and you don't need any bank to be able to transact between yourself and another person, right? So I think that this is also going to be a challenge and a trend that we should be watching out for. Blockchain applications will go beyond cryptocurrencies. They will go to other sectors, including helping to manage digital identity. I'm aware that the National Identification Agency in the country is already looking at or already using blockchain technology for the purpose of national identity. Another trend I think that we should expect is that most platforms will necessarily start evolving into fintech. How do I mean? Whether you're an agro platform like FarmCrowdy, whether you're an health platform, whether you are an edtech platform, at the end of the day, you find that you're going to be doing enabling payments, at least for your users. You're going to be doing a whole lot of things around finance or investments. That way, you are becoming more like a fintech startup. We're also seeing trends around social media platforms beginning to evolve. For example, is Twitter, which has been bought by Elon Musk some months back. And what we are seeing is that Twitter, now X.com, has become more like a platform, where a super app where you can do beyond tweeting. You will increasingly be able to make payments and shop right on X.com. We already see that business model in Asia, in a place like China, where you have WeChat, right? People are able to carry out fintech, do stuff that fintech do right on the app. So I think that this is going to be a trend to watch out for.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. All right, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. And that's how we wrap it up on Tech Talk. Don't forget to drop your comments and contributions on all our social media platforms. And also join us next week, same time, same station, for a fresh edition of the program. But before we go, we'll bring you tech tips. My name is Dorcas Yakubuzala. Goodbye. Today on Tech Tips, we'll be looking at tips to consider when setting up a tech startup in Nigeria. Company registration and structure. Startups in Nigeria must begin by establishing their legal entity. Common options include business names, limited liability partnerships, and limited liability companies. The Corporate Affairs Commission (CAC) is a regulatory body overseeing business registration and compliance. Proper registration is the foundation of any successful startup venture. Intellectual property protection. Protecting intellectual property is paramount for innovation-driven startups. Nigerian startups can register trademarks, patents, and copyright to the Nigerian Copyright Commission (NCC) and the Trademarks, Patents and Designs Registry (TPDR). This safeguards their innovative ideas, products, and branding from infringement. Regulatory environment. Different sectors may have specific regulatory bodies governing them. For instance, fintech startups must adhere to the regulations set by the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN). Health tech companies fall under the purview of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC). Startups must stay informed about industry-specific regulations and ensure compliance. Investment and funding. Nigeria's startup ecosystem has attracted significant investment in recent years. Startups can access funding from venture capital firms, angel investors, and government grants. The Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission (NIPC) facilitates investment and provides guidance on foreign investments. Taxation. Understanding tax laws and incentives is crucial. Startups can benefit from tax incentives such as the Pioneer Status Incentive, which grants tax holidays to qualifying companies. Proper tax planning is essential to avoid legal complications. Data privacy. With the introduction of the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation (NDPR), data privacy has become a critical concern. Startups handling personal data must comply with these regulations. This includes obtaining consent, implementing data protection measures, and reporting data breaches. Contractual agreements. Startups engage in various contracts, including partnerships, employment agreements, and customer contracts. Legal counsel can assist in drafting clear and enforceable contracts to protect the interests of all parties involved. Dispute resolution. Nigeria offers various mechanisms for dispute resolution, including litigation, arbitration, and mediation. Startups should choose the most suitable approach to resolve conflicts efficiently and cost-effectively. Ease of doing business. Nigeria has made concerted efforts to improve the ease of doing business through initiatives like the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. These reforms aim to streamline administrative processes and reduce bureaucratic hurdles for startups. Startup support organizations. Numerous organizations and innovation hubs, such as the Nigerian Economic Summit Group (NESG), provide support and resources for startups, including legal advice and mentorship. Compliance and reporting. Startups must adhere to reporting requirements, including tax filings, annual returns, and regulatory compliance. Failure to do so can result in fines and legal repercussions. Exit strategies. As startups grow, they may consider exit strategies such as mergers and acquisitions or going public. These processes involve complex legal negotiations and compliance with securities laws.